the political unconscious of the state that has brought this. But of course, we know the British medical journal Lancet has produced statistical estimates, not based on trying to count individuals, but simply looking at population records, which suggests that more than 1 million Iraqis have died as a result of direct violence during the occupation. Not to mention disease, malnutrition, all kinds of other collateral damage, or the hundreds of thousands of refugees now in Syria and Jordan. So I think there is a deep resistance to seeing this. You may know that there are dozens of films about Iraq now, documentarians. Rory Kennedy made a film called The Ghosts of Abu Ghraib a year ago, this last winter. Errol Morris has just released Standard Operating Procedure. Brian De Palma made a film title which escapes me at the moment, but which is a film of Iraq and what goes on as seen by U.S. soldiers there who are directly involved in the violence, especially these nighttime sweeps, breaking down people's doors, entering into houses. But there seems to be a kind of downward trajectory. I think the American movie-going public can hardly bear to see anything more of this. So in that sense, perhaps The Hooded Man is also a way of just condensing that into something that's not going to go away, not going to be forgotten, but keep coming back. And I think Errol Morris has predicted that this is the image that will be remembered in very much the same way that images of World War II and of Vietnam were remembered. It will become the icon in the memory of the war.
I suppose in some ways it will be remembered, but there also is this phenomenon that we see going on with the memorialization of past wars, where, or past historical figures, like Martin Luther King, where there was a huge complaint that caused the King sculpture to be rejected because it was too stern, he was too serious, he wasn't friendly enough. And I think there is this way in which our memorials have reproduce a kind of mythology that makes us victims ourselves or somehow innocent of anything like this. This would be a fitting memorial of this war, but the kind of memorial we will produce inevitably will be one that will create the possibility of us having another war.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think it's highly unlikely that this will be that any conceivable government in the U.S. will use this as the memorial of the Iraq War. I have no idea at this point what would be appropriate, and I think that's also in the context of the inability of this country to memorialize the World Trade Center properly, the inability to somehow find a way to have closure on that. I told you about my conversation on the plane from London yesterday. Another part of it was simply, well, of course the Iraq War was justified. Look what they did to us on 9/11. When I said, 9/11 had nothing to do with Iraq, there were no Iraqis on that plane, etc. I realized this is a firmly fixed memory in a large percentage of our fellow citizens. They really believe that somehow the invasion of Iraq was directly justified as payback for September 11th. So memorialization, I think is very important. 9/11 get memorialized in a proper way so it can be defetishized and stop being used as an excuse for a constant state of emergency. But there is no justification for the state of emergency we're in. Much less the declaration of this phantasmatic war on terror. But I don't know any American politician, including Barack Obama, who could say that. You're not, it's okay to say the war in Iraq was a mistake and we should withdraw. But I think it'd be very dangerous for anybody running for office to say the war on terror is a mistake. And to just point out the simple grammatical absurdity of it. It's a very strange moment when we're fixated with this, with that metaphor. That's the image I think that needs to be sounded and its hollowness revealed.
The image to me evokes such powerlessness and vulnerability, and I think lightness makes me really feel connected to it. Fortunately, I'm afraid it also, that comes from that it appears our political process, I feel, leaves me in a similar position to that man. As you were just saying, we appear to have no ability to change the direction of where we've gone. We have an administration that has no sense of seeking any consensus, compromise with the great majority of the citizens, and who is completely committed to their harsh point of view that produced that figure. I just feel like our nation is in a similar situation.
Well, you know, I think a year ago I would have said, yeah, I feel exactly the same way, but I come from Hyde Park in Chicago, and I have this feeling about the coming election that a big change is coming. And that I also have some faith in the American Constitution. And the fact that the candidate I think is going to win is somebody who understands that Constitution. If any of you heard his speech in Philadelphia on the theme of a more perfect union, where he spoke in Philadelphia in the kind of place of memory of the Founding Fathers, and reflected on the imperfection of these. To make a more perfect union, we have to understand how imperfect it is and what it needs. As you may recall, the New York Times called it the most brilliant political speech, ranking with Kennedy, Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. So I'm actually, it's the first time in a very long time I've had any hope in the American political process, the electoral process. Maybe I'm naive, but let's see what happens in November. And then let's see what happens January 22nd when he takes office.
Did they give you one more?
This is just really more of a comment, and you can go on from it, but when I look at this image, what it kind of makes me think of is for me, it mirrors the scapegoating phenomenon that you talk about with the man on the plane who said, well, you know, we went to Iraq because of 9/11. I frequently meet people who say, you know, we went to Iraq because of 9/11. And sometimes I almost wonder if it's because after 9/11, there's this build-up within different people in the public to find some sort of object to focus their blame on. In this case, it ended up becoming Iraq. And in American culture, you almost would find a lot of people would even scapegoat or would put a lot of negative attitude towards Muslims or Iraqis or people of Middle Eastern descent in general. So for me, what this